The world turns, and with each turn, a change. And each change makes it more complex, unpredictable, enigmatic. The world keeps turning. And from the Pellicer and Heredia practice, we anticipate everything that is going to happen. Brexit, artificial intelligence, new commercial borders, legal tech. The world keeps turning, and it commands the reliance on international lawyers who are capable of interpreting this new reality with integrity, honesty, and transparency, offering answers to so many new questions. Whatever it is, ask us. At Pellicer and Heredia, we know how.
Hello, good afternoon. Sorry for the little bit delay that we just had, just technical problems. Today, we're going to talk about the 720 and the sentence that recently we had on the European Court of Justice, which most of you sent us questions, and I'm sure we could be a very interactive webinar. You please send us in the chat now all your questions, and we'll try to cover within this hour. Let me introduce you here. I've got today the privilege to have Pedro Heredia.
Hello, Ignacio. Hello, everyone. Nice to show in this webinar in order to inform about this specific resolution that we have about Modelo 720, which we will be specifying some things that has been done, we assume correctly, obviously, and some other things are not. But it's been a really good news, this resolution that we had in the last 27th of January, which is gonna change in some way the threatened informative Modelo 720 that we had in the past, and now it should be changed in the following months.
Right, let's start with what Modelo 720 is, because I know a lot of you might be in different countries. And today we want to share with you first, what is Modelo 720? Who's obliged to pay, Pedro? Shall we start and probably explain the audience the three categories that still, the 720 is still valid in Spain? If you want just to run through a little bit, the three things the European Court of Justice said and what the government said, and we could specify everything.
I will be showing
in the blackboard.
In a few minutes, but obviously whenever someone have to think about what if he's obligated to do Modelo 720 or not, first thing is it should be said, oh, I'm a resident in Spain or not. And if I'm a resident, obviously I'm a tax resident in Spain, and for that reason you have the obligation to declare your worldwide assets outside of Spain if they are over 50,000 euros in different pillars, which we will be showing you. And obviously the first thing is to be resident in Spain. And we've been many times explaining what it means to be resident in Spain. But let's go for an example, and probably will be better in order to explain this specific situation. Okay, well, let's think about I like to write some lines in order to cover every year. And let's think that it is 2020, 2021, and the year that we are right now, 2022. We have many clients that started to be resident in 2020.
Pedro, just one sec. I think your microphone is off. Could you double check, Paco, for a second? Sorry for this. Let me just see whether the audience is saying here that Pedro's voice is still muted. So can you hear us now? No? Okay. Can you hear Paco? Is it possible? Yeah? Okay.
It's okay right now?
Sorry, Pedro, hold on.
Okay, sorry about this. I will just restart from what I was explaining in this board. In order to answer the question if you are obligated or not to declare this specific informative form 720, firstly you need to be resident in Spain. And to be resident in Spain, one of the standard rules is that you have to stay in Spain more than 183 days in Spain. Okay, so this is one of the main rules in order to be tax resident in Spain. We have many clients, Ignacio, that because, for example, because of the Brexit, became resident in 2020, became full resident in 2020. But many of them did it at the end of the year. Many of them did it at the end of the year, let's say October, November, December. Let's put like this is the 1st of January, this is the 31st of December, and let's say that this is the
1st of July, probably,
1st of July, or 30th of June.
Which is the 6 months.
Which is 6 months. Obviously, it's a presumption if someone became resident during this time of the year is less than 183 days. For that reason, this year, 2020, is non-resident for tax purposes. So may happen a situation that you become resident, let's say for the 11th of November, but this year from the 31st of December, or from the 1st of January to the 31st of December, you are non-tax resident in Spain. So you don't have obligations to submit any form unless you have got income as a non-resident or unless you own a property in Spain as a non-resident, then you have to submit some different forms. But first for the 720s to be resident. So if someone became really in this kind of period of time, I'm sure that many of them did it on this time, but you haven't done it really this time of the year. But let's focus really also for those ones that start being resident here, like let's say in March, April, that were tax resident in 2020 and had the obligation to submit 720 in 2021, and then the tax return, and also this year, we have to also make the tax return. And maybe if something changed, it will have to be required also to inform also for the 720. Okay, so first thing that you need to answer is, I am resident in Spain, which period of time, if I became resident in Spain in 2021, then you need to do the same exercises just to, if I am more than 183 days in Spain for 2021, would I have to present my tax from in the 1st of January to the 31st of March, Modelo 720? And if not, then would be the following year. So first thing, I am resident in Spain. I was last resident in Spain last year. I have to declare this year 720 in Spain. Okay, so this is the first thing, Ignacio, that I think it should be answered. It's important to understand, because many people understand, say, well, I have to declare this informative wealth asset, but many of them are non-resident.
So Pedro, the thing that let's try to put a simple scenario. First thing clients need to know is whether they're a tax resident or non-resident, correct? Correct. Sometimes they get confused with residencia. And as you know, and if you could go on that, just refresh clients, because actually today I had a conversation as well. Someone with a TIE from one date, but originally tax resident in a different country. So could you just run on and just explain, because we've got questions here on non-lucrative visa as well. I've got non-lucrative visa. Do I pay taxes in Spain? And if we could be brief on that and then jump on to the sentence.
Okay. I mean, as I said, being resident in Spain, let's say that we are in 2021 and someone became resident in 2021, let's say in November. I will explain it again, just to if he's confused. And does this mean that it's been less than 183 days? And it's been less than 183 days, then it means that it's non-resident for tax purposes. Even though became resident in this time of a year, and it was fully residentially authorized to be resident in Spain, that year between the 1st of January to the 31st of December is non-resident for tax purposes. For example, this year, if sold a property and got a capital gain in January, and then invest in some funds and sold some shares and got a capital gain, well, do they have to include this in the capital gains tax in Spain? No, because they are non-resident, in case they were less than 183 days.
So Pedro, the first lesson is to know whether I'm resident or non-resident.
That's the first key. That's the first answer that you need to your question. So for those who have been more than 183 days in Spain, Okay, well, that is the situation where we have to be declared worldwide income in Spain for the tax return. And obviously the Modelo 720, in case they have abroad assets with each independent pillar, bank account, investment fund, and property is over 50,000.
Could I take it for granted, Pedro, that the residencia sets a starting point for the tax year? Because as you know, some people was before the residencia, but didn't get their residencia until one point. Some of them, they got residencia, but they've been out of the country. So I think they need to seek independent advice on that, because very specific, isn't it?
Obviously, that advice should be obviously
accurate with proper.
Yeah. But the general rule is that you have to stay in Spain more than 183 days from the 1st of January to 31st. Oh, well, I have TIE from the beginning of the year, but I haven't spent more than 183 days. Well, there are other things, other rules come into this game, really, in order to specify if you've been, because of the COVID, for example, or if you have a property in Spain and not in your home country and you were living there by a temporary situation. But Ignacio, there are some specific situations, but I want to
just general,
just to understand that if you spend more than 183 days in Spain from the 1st of January to 31st of December, then you are tax resident in Spain. Okay. And obviously, also we could link into the a little bit before we enter on the wealth tax, because there is a situation where wealth tax, and I think that you made a video regarding wealth tax for non-residents, and also obviously when you become resident, also there's a wealth tax in order to declare in some regions where we are in Valencia, there is an obligation to declare wealth tax some limit point. Probably Ignacio, you could be able to explain a little bit for
non-residents what they need to do. Right, very briefly here, very briefly. If you are non-resident, let's say you've got a tax certificate from a different country, you stay here less than 183 days. Bear in mind that there is a dual taxation treaty with a lot of countries in case for those of you who might have mirror situation. Let's say now if you've got property here, 180 or 82, very, very tight. You could read the criteria on Article 4 of dual taxation treaty with your country, and you could specify when you're considered in this circumstance, the center of interest, etc., etc. Now, if you're non-resident, the only obligation you have here in Spain is if you don't have a property, then you have nothing to worry. If you don't have an income as a non-resident or from work, not to worry. And there is no tax to pay. There is no 720 to declare and nothing. Now, if you have a property here, and you could watch our video on non-resident tax here, so I won't repeat it again, you need to declare that according to the cadastral value. You need to pay a non-resident tax based on the value of the property. And as Pedro stated, wealth tax. Wealth tax only in this community if it goes over 700,000 euros for non-residents. Okay, I know it could get complex because for residents is 500, but there are an allowance, an extra allowance. But I don't want to confuse you here because tax are difficult sometimes to understand, especially if we're talking about a different country. But that's for non-resident, right? Let's put you in the picture. I guess most of the audience is a resident, tax resident, probably for first time, probably as a second time, or who knows how many years you've been here. Right, 720, let's say what the sentence says. The sentence basically doesn't say the 720 form is completely illegal. What it says is that the fines are disproportionate and they go against the freedom of movement in Europe. Obviously, there is a big problem with the non-expiring date, and all these things are going to be abolished. So what do I expect we're going to get? Because one of the members of the government announced that they're going to update the fines. So what is going to happen with the 720? They are, number one, going to pay back to whoever they gave them a fine, because these fines are considered illegitimate, disproportionate, and against European principles. So that will be abolished, and you could claim that money back. Second thing, what is going to happen? They're going to give some new fines, which I expect that it will be according to the rest of modelos or forms that you have here in Spain. For example, not complying with your income tax return in Spain. 3, they will remove a very important topic about the expiring action. If you remember, Pedro, the problem we had with the 720 was it was pretty much a trap, because you forgot to do it in 2012 when it first came into force. And then when you lodge it and you were trying to lodge it, you were late. So they could give you originally a fine. The good thing, as far as I know, that from 2017, when Europe came into force and start looking through it, they didn't send bills, as far as I know, to clients. But you heard a lot of stories about the Swiss person, the taxi driver in Granada.
Exactly. This example about taxi driver in Granada is amazing. It's something amazing. That is a taxi driver, a Spanish taxi driver in Granada that had a property in Switzerland. So, and this is what the resolution by the 27th of January of this year entries in order to void or annul all these threatened fines that the government of Spain in 2012 apply in order for all the residents in Spain in order to declare these worldwide assets. And one of the things that it has been eliminated directly, and I think is extremely important, is that the prescription. Before this resolution, I mean, there's a rule, still a rule, it hasn't still been a void in the Spanish rules, but obviously the European Court resolution has said that, and will came into force, is that even though it has passed more than 4 years, and in Spain we have a 4 years time in order to make the declaration, if it's not done on that time, then the tax office do not have actions against you. If it is not been declared and has passed more than 4 years, tax office had really an action against you, and there is no limit. This is what says this specific Modelo 720, or the rules on tax office about this specific Modelo. So that specific rule about prescription has been eliminated. As I said, okay, what the Spanish government, what the Spanish tax office is doing is not correct. Obviously, there are some in the public lawyers into the allegation regarding in the European Court was saying also a little bit like that. So was confirming really in this case that the prescription was not really a good thing. So this time, this is not gonna happen. The other one it happens to this taxi driver in Granada, and there are some other cases, big cases, that it was understood that, for example, this specific property from Switzerland was understood that was a gain, and the value of that property was a gain, and the value of the property was 400,000 euros. It was understood that the latest period of time, which is the 4th year before, for example, from now, was understood that you had that kind of income, which was the value of the property. I know this may be a little bit complex, but was understood by tax office that the value that you have from that property, it was a gain. So that 400,000 euros, it understood has to be gone to the tax return, to income tax.
Which is crazy.
And let's put the example that in that specific case, we have different scales in the Spanish system, but let's think that it was like 30%. So it was like a fine of, let's say, 150,000 euros, for example. That 150,000 euros, it was not just that. And that the gain has been also eliminated by the resolution in the European Court, but also was imposed a fine of 150% of that. So it is 150,000 euros plus 150,000 euros plus 75, which is 375,000 euros, owning a property of 400,000 euros, which is absolutely crazy.
So it was really more than what it was worth.
In some cases, was also more.
Yeah.
So in this case, this fine is 150% fine about the gain. That was not a gain. It was something that, even though there are some exceptions that you can argue and show to that this was not a gain, this was really got before because of that.
But you need
and when you got it, you were non-resident in Spain. Well, there are some exceptions on law, in these cases.
But Pedro, with non-resident it's a bit easier because
exactly.
you start from zero.
Exactly.
And then there is a pass that tax office
exactly.
just doesn't argue.
Exactly.
But with Spanish people, which was created for
exactly.
Spanish people here, the problem, because Modelo 720 was created for Spaniards that had money abroad and never declare it. So tax office wanted to have all that information. At the end of the day, it's nothing really different of what the income tax law says.
Exactly.
But the problem was all the time, not expiring action, not expiring date on that, big problem. Then you have the problem on the fines, which are completely, so now, Pedro, where are we at the moment?
I mean, where are we? I mean, there are two, I mean, one point more that it was entry by the resolution that it was not in favor of this case for the consumer. It was argued that this kind of modelo was rejecting people to come to Spain, or was rejecting people which lives in Spain to invest abroad. Let's put an example. If someone is in Spain with the money in Spain, if you have to invest in a deposit, for example, in a bank in France, then you have to inform tax office in Spain that you have this money in a bank in France. So this argument regarding, oh, this may be limit the free movements principle that we have in Europe, and that has not been accepted by this resolution. So that has not been erased. So it means that the resolution says something in favor, really, that this kind of modelo, this kind of submission is really proportional in order to go against the fraud or against someone hiding an income. So that fight has not been won. But obviously, the other ones, which are extremely big, prosecution was absolutely crazy, and again, and 100% fine, 150% fine was absolutely crazy. So in these cases, so what we are right now, and this is the question that we say to clients: do we have the obligation to declare Modelo 720 now? Well, right now, the government of Spain is writing right now some amendments, amendments, some rules in order to say what will be the fine. Well, the fine will be proportionally in case that you don't submit this kind of at the time, which normally there are some other declarations that in these cases it goes from 150 to 250 euros fine. So should be something like that, not the gain, not like exactly the amount that you have invested in somewhere. I mean, it would be something that you haven't done. Well, you have a fine of 150 euros or 200 euros or 250 euros. It doesn't matter. And regarding the prescription, obviously it has to be said, well, it's not prescription. Prescription will be as every other thing, that it's 4 years time, and that's all. Well, one thing that I would like to mention that obviously this has not been said is that what if I had, and I have, a product investment from 2000 and let's say 16 and 17 and 18, 19, and okay, we are right now in 2021 to make it the 2020. Okay, but if I had the investment in this year, does this mean that I don't have to declare it because I had it from this year? No, okay. Okay, the prescription goes from 4 years. But if you keep going having the product, well, this year also will not have the obligation. Well, perfect, but this year you will have the obligation. So you will have to fulfill the requirements because this year will have to be done. Because it's in time, it's on time. But obviously with a small fine, let's see what the government says.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
That's quite interesting. Pedro, shall we run through how it stands now briefly, and then we start with questions and answer about, just as a reminder, even though there is an article that it should be with you in the chat about who has to do Modelo 720. Now, forget about the fines because this year still hasn't been published, and it will be coming, the normal fines, which I expect to be similar to not lodging your income tax return, okay? But for those of you who are starting to do Modelo 720, you're on time. There is no problem. For those of you who haven't done it, then we need to sit down and work out what could be possible fines. And as I always said, try to do tax planning, because that's a way to control any possible scenario for peace of mind. Okay.
Okay.
So Pedro,
Well,
who has the obligation nowadays to do Modelo?
what we said before, I mean, for those who are residents and for those who have assets which are over 50,000 euros in 3 pillars. Which pillars are these ones? First one is bank accounts. Well, if I have one bank account of 20,000 euros and another one of 20,000 euros and another one of 20,000 euros, that means that you have, through these 3 different bank accounts, 60,000 euros, then you have the obligation to declare them all.
Right, even though you are joint?
Exactly. What if I join this 20,000 euros bank account plus 20,000 euros bank account plus 20,000 euros bank account with my wife or jointly with someone? Do I have the obligation to declare them all? Yes, because in the Modelo you say this is the value on the 31st of December, 31st of December, 31st of December, and the percentage of ownership, which will be 50%. So in this case, even though you say, well, I own 30,000 euros, it's not 60,000 euros because it's jointly, it doesn't matter, you have the obligation to declare. Let's remind that this is an informative declaration. You don't pay taxes for this. It's an informative declaration. Okay. Obviously, it's linked to the tax return, just in case, in order to check if you get some income from there, you will have to obviously to inform. And this is one of the objectives really for this, in order to eliminate fraud for people not declaring income.
So the first pillar will be bank accounts, yeah?
Bank accounts, obviously, not those who are in Spain, those who are abroad.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Well, the second thing is investments. Well, investments is a very investments insurance. These big structures of financially in the world. The main thing is that to understand is those ones you are able to withdraw, those ones you have access, those ones which are assets like an ISA, like a bond, like a Roth IRA, like those structures that you are able to get some money withdraw to mature in any time. Normally we receive questions about pensions, if they should be included or not. In principle, not, but obviously we always recommend to check with your advisor in order to see perfectly if it should be included or not.
Pedro, what about private pensions that you could withdraw all the money in a go? This
is what I just first say is, if you are able to withdraw, if you are able to mature, then those ones in principle should be included.
Correct.
In principle should be included.
Correct.
Okay. And obviously, if the value on the 31st of December or the quarter average amount in the last 3 months of the year, or past, in this case, will be from October, November, December, is over 50,000 euros. And also property. Property.
Yes.
What we like to say, I mean, always we recommend is obviously we always apply for the purchase or the acquisition price. When you bought it, which is the price, obviously the year, the time when you bought it, and if you acquire as an inheritance, which was the value that you inherit, that's the value is going to be included in the form.
So Pedro, could I only do one block and not the rest?
Exactly. What if I have more than 50,000 euros here, but here in bank accounts is no more than 20,000 euros? Well, that one will not. It is independently. That will not be have to be included, and the other ones will have to be included.
So I could do it independently, yeah? Exactly. So I could have only property and not do the other ones, but I still do Modelo 720.
Exactly. That's right. That's right. That's how it works. It's an informative declaration and it has this limit of 50,000 euros, independent of these 3 pillars.
Okay.
Okay. And well, basically, the timing in order to present is from the 1st of January to the 31st of March, and is done by a certified signature, is done telematically, is done through a computer, through your tax advisor. And obviously what we recommend is to inform as much as what you have and then your tax advisor to check whether it needs to be included or not.
Okay. Pedro, could I ask you one more question here? I became a non-lucrative visa resident as of August 31st. So obviously after the 6 months time. But I had a student visa from January to June 2021. So I don't know if I should fill out the form Modelo 720. Well, but I had a student visa from January to June, and then he had a visa, non-lucrative visa, I understand, in August. So it seems to me there are more than 183 days,
Absolutely.
and it doesn't matter the type of visa, does it?
Absolutely. I mean, on that question is the answer is obviously what we said before. I mean, if you stay more than 183 days, then you in a standard answer is really yes. You have to submit your Model 720 and tax return your worldwide income in Spain. Obviously, there are some exceptions, some things that need to be checked regarding if you are considered as a tax resident in your home country. You're also considered in Spain, and there are some other rules that come into because sometimes happens that okay, this person that makes this question may think, or the tax office of the home country may say, well, he's tax resident or she's tax resident in my country, and also the Spanish tax authority says you are tax resident in Spain. Which one do we take? Well, we need to go to the double taxation treaties, which says on a scale sometimes, and where is your home country, where is your center of finance, interest, economic. In this case, the answer is yes, you have to submit Model 720, but obviously I will recommend you to check this.
Right, let me just give you a little bit of advice here on what I expect. For those of you who came from UK, probably United States, as Pedro stated, on the line here, let's say 1 year, and this is the second year. I know you guys probably remember April to April in some countries. In different countries is a different rule, right? Well, there is an important thing. How could I prove, Pedro, on an inspection? Let's say we all have an inspection. We want to have all the things properly. What do I recommend you to have in place? Just protecting you, nothing else here. First, when you come over to Spain, try to have a fiscal certificate from your home country, because if later on there is any issue, you're going to have to prove that you were a tax resident over there and you are obviously non-resident here. And this is very important. And this is what a lot of things we get, Pedro, with clients it's difficult because you're having 2 different years, 2 different, you say, let's say here, 2020, and this is 21. And sometimes you guys are traveling as you wish, when you wish, and as circumstances come. So why not, even if you're in Spain or if you were, try to get yourself always a tax certificate, not necessarily before you come, but just try to work on it, because if later on there are going to be questions, why you didn't pay taxes here in this year, the easy way for you to prove it and close the file will be through a tax certificate from your home country. And that really helps on the inspections that you're having. Planning non-resident and resident is very important, and having these certificates are very good. For example, Pedro, some people they are traveling in Dubai, they are here. Sometimes you probably are not tax resident in anywhere, but tax office, if they don't have the certificate, they might think you are avoiding the tax because you're not paying in any country. So one of the requirements of an inspection, and obviously for those of you who are decided not to lodge it this year because you were non-resident, make sure if you're planning to come here and you want to have all the evidence in place, etc., which is not necessary at the moment because you didn't have an inspection, but you might need in the future. If it's easy for you to get a certificate, don't forget to have certificate. Don't forget to work on that. Okay, I think it's important advice. Pedro, shall we just, because time moves on.
Okay, I think let's go to this question, Ira.
Here, have you, is it about the IRA?
Yeah. Is there,
what retirement assets count towards wealth tax, like 401k IRA from USA? Does the investment account count as full market value or just the gain minus cost? Okay, Pedro?
The IRA is a specific investment. Normally it's for Americans.
Yes, Americans have that.
Investment. Obviously, it's like a traditional IRA where you make some investment and you get some like benefit on taxes. And the Roth IRA is different. You invest it, but you have to pay taxes on that. So In this case, it's not. The 401k and IRA do not count in wealth tax. It's like a pension. It's like a traditional pension. But the Roth IRA, in this case, it is included. The Roth IRA is like an asset. It will be included, for example, also in the 720.
So Roth IRA, Pedro, is compulsory?
Yeah, but Roth IRA is compulsory, but the ISA, for example, is in the 720, it's in the wealth tax, because it's something that you have access to that.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Let's move on. Different questions. I don't know if you read that I have a UK property which was built 43 years ago using many different constructors. I no longer have financial records for the cost of building. How do I value this property for the 720 asset declaration? Well, I think that's this situation is not really recognized in the law, and probably is a matter of evidence, like all in law. I mean, I don't know whether we could prove how much money did cost you at the time, but probably is a matter of working on the evidence, because if you lost all the invoices, if you really don't know, probably evaluation, how much money that was worth at the time 40 years ago, how much money you spent on it. I know it's a very difficult one, but it's all down to evidence if you ever have an inspection. But now you need to declare it on the 720, and it's hard to have evidence. It's a hard one, isn't it?
It's a good question, obviously, about the value of the property and the 720 and many other declarations on tax. I mean, and now we have these new rules regarding how to value properties and with the catastrophe, and that is obviously what 43 years ago has been built. Obviously shouldn't have probably an invoice, or if he has, what kind of a value should be included in the Model 720. Obviously, what we say is the acquisition value, but obviously this in some ways, in this case specifically, I think they should be increased in some way. Obviously, taking into account all the scenario about investment is being done on the property.
I know in Spain, Pedro, we have this government office that tells you exactly how much it was worth at the time and gives you a comparison on the real value today. I don't know if you will be able to prove that in your home country, how much was worth at the time. But it's a matter of evidence at the end of the day.
It is important. I mean, obviously, if you also have to make the wealth tax, it also needs to be included the assets, the property also, because obviously 43 years ago is a value of, let's put an example, a property of 100,000 euros, and now the property is 1 million euros. Then you have to cover is a market value, is if it has not been inspected by tax office, obviously should be included these rules that we have right now in order to value the property. But it's something that is very important to see and to check perfectly when it has passed a lot of time, and obviously the investment has increased a lot.
And Pedro, there is another one here. They say, what level of fines do you think the government will introduce for Modelo 720?
Well, I always say that. I mean, the fines were, this is about the gain, but it also the fine was disproportionately, totally. I mean, was subject into the gain, into like, you have to pay this as an income. I understand this. I mean, this is not strictly a fine, but it was like an income. This is, but also this 100%, 150% fine. As I said, should be that kind of, well, also I didn't say that, but also has been eliminated. It was like, if you didn't say a data, one specific data of the one specific investment, it was 5,000 euros.
Yeah.
Obviously, this is fines has been
all gone.
Eliminated.
So that's good. That's good.
Okay, but should be that kind of fine. I mean, if you don't say it, if you don't do it, what will be the fine to do it? Right now, many people is investing in crypto.
Yes,
cryptocurrency.
That's another form that is coming.
In the wallet, and right now the government is making a new form. It's more than a 721.
21, yeah.
And now we presume that something will appear probably before the 31st of March. But obviously, all this attracts into the crypto also.
Yeah,
investment.
That's right. It's an investment.
It's eliminated prescription, any fine, anything is right now is new, and to cover this. But the crypto, as far as we understand, obviously this is going to be a lot of works in the future. Do not have to be included in 720. Will be included whenever is approved by the government in the following month in the 721, 721,
which will be similar.
Yeah.
Right. Again, this is important because I see here two different scenarios, Pedro. The ones who are becoming resident are doing everything properly now from zero, which I consider you start fresh and there is nothing to worry in the past, okay? But for those who by some reasons didn't do it, then we need to value all the consequences. Now, it's hard to say the fine consequences because we still don't have. We can only use common sense of what the income tax return states at the moment if you didn't lodge your income tax return on time. Okay, now let's move on because we have questions here.
I think we have on this one.
Right, because of Brexit, does the EU court judgment apply to people from the UK, freedom of movement? Or does having the residencia TIE means you are protected as a EU citizen? Right, okay, but residents and non-residents, if you are a European, this is a binding situation but I would say it's going to be binding for everyone because the government is going to change the applicable fines and therefore there is not going to be a distinction. Even though, it's a good question, is it only going to affect European people or not? My common sense says it should apply to everyone. As it happened, Pedro, with the non-resident tax, income tax, inheritance tax. Do you know inheritance tax for Europeans, for non-Europeans, you know, and pretty much, for example, capital gain tax for non-Europeans and Europeans are exactly the same. For non-residents, 19%. However, the 24% is a bit, I consider, abusive for non-European, okay, on the non-resident tax.
Yeah, non-resident tax for the income that they get for rents, but also in order to not be able to reduce the cost of all expenses, which is also really bad.
But I recommend you, if you are a non-European and you're renting out a property, let's change subject now into that, just speak to your lawyer to make sure you do a contract properly so you can minimize the damage of the 24% because you're not going to be able to deduct the expense. Therefore, there is nothing wrong with the tenant doing and paying all the expenses if you're not going to be able to deduct it. I'm just giving you here an idea to discuss it with your lawyer. Pedro, shall we move on with the next question?
I cannot see very well.
I can. I'll read it aloud. The Cine Group says UK property purchase costs, etc. Should they be revalued annually at their rate at each 31st of December? Right.
I mean, this is what we're saying about
20. We didn't talk about the 20,000 euros increase.
The increase.
Yeah.
The value. Obviously, let me say that.
If you could explain, when do I need to redo it again, Pedro?
What if I declared in these bank accounts that I had, this example that I said, 60,000 euros. And then after a year or after 2 years or after 3 years, I have 81. Well, this is an increase more than 20,000 euros. And well, the increase is per year is when it's 21,000 euros, then will have to be included in the Modelo 720 again, will have to be done again. You don't have to make this Modelo 720 every single year, Ignacio, unless it is increased 20,000 euros value. Increase.
Another question, Pedro.
And what if these bank accounts that we said is 3 bank accounts of 20,000 euros, 20,000 euros, and 20,000 euros? What if I put all that together and just in one, and this one is 81? Well, should I inform about this cancellation of bank accounts? Yes. Everything that you change, it counts, and you need to inform properly that that specific bank account has been cancelled.
Right. And how about, Pedro, so when do I need to redo it again? When it goes over 20,000? And how about if it reduces the value?
Well, if you reduce the value, I mean,
let's say you lose money on the investment.
If they reduce the value, do not have to be included. It is when it's increased.
Okay. Good. How about if I have a pension fund there and I transfer by a donation? Do I need to report on the 720 a donation?
Well, donation, first, I mean...
Not inheritance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Donation, I mean, we need to firstly to say, well, when it's a donation, it needs to be done properly as a donation. But obviously...
I need to update it on the 720.
Exactly.
So every time there is a change of, let's put it this, cancellation of rights, transfer or rights,
Exactly.
Donations, gifts, inheritance. Do I need to update Modelo?
Obviously, when you transform some money or some property into another asset, at the end, tax office is going to have this information. We want to have this information in order to see whether you have an investment and you are getting some income. Really, the purpose of 720 is just to focus in case that you have some investments that you getting income and you are not declaring it.
Yeah, is at the end of the day, the bottom line is income tax return and paying income tax return. Okay, we have another one, Ho. So if you have savings over 50,000 euros and declare on 720, what is the tax rate, please? But obviously, I don't know if Juan Fran could just give you here the link of, if you go into a website, what we do, taxes in Spain, La Renta, you'll have the sliding scale in this community, Pedro, because 50,000 euros, it doesn't mean is the gain, right? What the income tax is going to tax citizens is on any gain, okay? If you have a 50,000 euros saving in your bank in the United States, in the UK, all around the world, that doesn't mean you're going to pay tax, because that's money that you've saved because you pay tax. The thing is that if you generate, nowadays it's impossible to think that a bank account generates interest, but in the old days, they will generate you interest, okay? And therefore that interest is what you need to be taxed on, okay?
That's right.
Right? Okay, what else do we have here? Yeah.
Questions?
Are the calculations for pensions based on the income received for the year, for 2021?
All the calculations for pensions based on the income received for year. Yeah, well, this is our income tax declaration. We're talking about that. When pension at the end, it comes into the whatever you receive from the 1st of January to the 31st of March. Obviously, calculations, if you receive it in currency, which is not euros, will have to be translated into euros. The perfect way to do it is whenever you receive that in pounds or in dollars, will have to be translated into euros according to the exchange rate of that day. Normally, there are some standard rates for a year, let's say 2021 or 2020, between a euro and, on average rate, euro and dollar, euro and pounds, euro and any other currency, which will have to be done and translated into euros. Obviously, is the income that you get specifically on that year, 1st of January to 31st of December. There are one point that I would like to, for this question, that it happens, and with the United Kingdom citizens, Ignacio, as you know, the calendar year that they have is from the 5th of April.
You talking about the British,
yeah,
Pedro?
From the 5th of April to the 5th of April. And when we have 1st of January to 31st of December. Obviously, and here will be the following year from the 5th of April on the following year. So obviously there is here, when someone becomes tax resident this year, let's say that this is 2021, would be a point here. This is from 2020 to 21 in the tax year of UK, would be a point here that, well, is really paying taxes in both countries, needs to be deducted whatever it was paid here. But sometimes we have clients that receive the income before the 31st of December, so really on this time of a period of time, and pay taxes accordingly to this, even though it is included in the yearly here. So technically has received it before 31st, do not have to be included in Spain, has paid taxes in the UK.
But Pedro, if this is the 31st of December, what we need to do is the FD9 form, informing that we are tax resident in Spain from the 1st.
The DF9 needs to be done in order to deduct this amount, but this amount should be included in tax forms in the UK, and that income that you receive not included in the tax year in Spain. Obviously, this is very complex, very complex, but it's important.
I think it's quite interesting. It's quite interesting because I had today a really situation. A lot of you might have this situation. So, Pedro, could you draw up here the scenario that a lot of people are planning to come? Do you have a pen over there? Yeah. It's just, so 2020 31st and the FD9 form. I don't know if you heard about this form. If you are residents abroad, let's say about British, because it's called FD9 form. I'm sure in the United States there is another form as well. Important when you leave your country to always draw a line, right? So you tell the Inland Revenue that here you're a tax resident in your home country, but the 31st of December of whatever year, you will stop here. Sometimes a lot of you didn't do it by some reasons. So as Pedro stated, are in April with the problem. What we are normally recommending is to do the form, the international form. You say and that the 1st of January, you are a tax resident in Spain, right? And therefore, please give me a rebate here. And they normally take 3 months to pay you back. You draw a line, but they request you a certificate of tax resident in Spain, which can only be issued after 6 months from your TIE residencia. So that's, again, the starting point. Residencia, 6 months after, then you could apply to the tax office for a certificate. Okay, so for those who are you on this situation, or you might be, bear in mind there is here like a change between 1 year to the other year, but there is a way to do it. Okay, now Sandrine was saying here one question about what is a certificate, what I just said. Certificate is exactly this: inform your Inland Revenue home country that what you are. If you have a certificate saying I pay my tax, I'm a tax resident, that's excellent. Okay, if you ever have problems in the future, we might ask you a different certificate to say, according to the dual taxation treaty between Spain and United States or UK or Australia, whatever, a non-European country or European country, you're a tax resident. Therefore, the way to stop or trust everything from an administration is with another administration. So if you get a certificate saying you're a tax resident over there, it's pretty sure they will close the file if you ever have an inspection. Now, as I said, all this is general advice. We could just sit down with you to specific, either organize video conference or see here in the office. But again, as I said, sometimes it's not going to click one country and another country. Sometimes you're going to pay over there and you're really overlapping because you are a tax resident here. There is a way to claim that money back. Okay, I know Pedro in the United States works differently. They lodge the income tax return, I believe February, March, but you could ask for an extension. So sometimes, depending on your situation, you do the Spanish tax here because you're a resident here. You ask for an extension in the US. Then once you pay here, according to the dual taxation, you declare it in your home country. Okay. Do we have any other question, Pedro?
Because we have some questions.
Interesting questions here.
I think you have already said, but holding a non-lucrative visa and my income from outside of Spain, business will be in the US. What is my status with taxes? Obviously, we have to check on double taxation treaty, but accordingly, in a standard rule, accordingly to your income that you may have, obviously we have to declare it in Spain. Okay, as a residence country. And I don't know if there is more
other questions.
There is another one, which is this one. If you had a 350,000 in account, nor earning interest, will you need to pay tax on it? That's a question. And also, what if you had a property not rented out in the UK of 600,000 euros plus a house in Spain value of 300,000 euros? If you became resident as a non-lucrative visa resident, what would be the tax situation? Well, it's a good question, but okay. Well, this may take a little bit, but okay, it's a property of 600,000 euros in the UK is not rented. You will have to include it in the tax return in Spain, as we call it importación de renta, and the value of the property that you have in Spain obviously will be your permanent home, and you have a savings account of 350,000 euros, which is not any interest. So about income tax, obviously will not be included anything really, except obviously the imputación de renta that would have to be included. As far as that, there is no income. There is just two properties, and as as simple as that. But let me just take one thing on that question. It says it will be, I mean, wealth tax. Main harm is 350
for residents, yeah.
300 main harm in Spain. 300 will be deducted, so will not be included in wealth tax. 600,000 euros value property.
But we're talking about here.
Yeah, once is resident, one we can have Valencia region. That's right. And also an investment of 350. That would be included in wealth tax. That would be included in wealth tax. Okay.
Right. Let's say if I don't know if you went into this in the US, what is my status with taxes? Well, we didn't talk today neither. Obviously, it's not the topic about the normal visa, but we're going to have a special regime, Pedro, on the normal visa as well. We might be holding another webinar another day about what it brings. Do you know what phase are we with normal visa now? Is it in the Congress, I think, isn't it? And
right now, it's already in the proyecto, as far as I know. I have not been receiving any news on that, except the last weeks that we were informed about this new form. Obviously, it's going to attract people that, because we are receiving a lot of clients that say, well, I keep my business where it is in the home country, and I want to move me and my family to Spain, and I'm going to be working in Spain with a computer, telematically, and sometimes just to go fly back and forwards into my home country where my business are. Obviously, there is going to be a tax rule included in this specific visa, where would be a track and would be reduced the tax to be paid on income tax, and will be like a straightforward requirement in order to obtain this kind of visa. But obviously, once it comes, then we will be explaining about that.
Okay. All right, then. Okay. Well, as I said to you, I know this is very handy because you could be in a different country. I think we found this system very well to give you general advice. We recommend you always to do tax planning, always do things properly. Talk to your trusted lawyer and tax advisor to do plans, and obviously less stress, less worry, and safer. Let
me answer one more question. I just have seen it right now.
Okay.
Is it, what about the fines? We didn't speak about the fines for those ones who are paid.
Oh, that's right.
Because I mean, fortunately, we made the process. We made hundreds of Model 720, and we didn't. No, we've been very fine.
We've been very fine, and clients didn't pay any fines. But I heard there is been.
Exactly, but if you look for the internet, you will see that people have paid and sometimes big amounts of fines because of the threatened. And what I said before about this 4 years time, this the tax office right now. I mean, this prescription that we said before is really for 4 years from now. So right now, if you see, I mean, I've seen some articles about this resolution, what happens with those who has paid or is in the process right now on the resolution, where I admit that the judges will assume that this European resolution is going to be in favor of the, so will be a win case, really, in these cases, the cases that right now in process. Process. But those who paid, there is I would say there is a distinction I've seen in the reading, but I have my own criteria, which I would say, and says, okay, well, those who has paid in the last 4 years will have a right to claim, because the 4 years time is the prescription time in order to pay, to apply for this. But in my opinion, the prescription principle has been erased. So for me, the ones who paid really more than 4 years, 2013 or 14 or 15, will have also the right in order to apply back this money. It's a principle, obviously, in order to claim this. Obviously, we have to enter in the course. Let's see what the government says in the following weeks about if it says something about this. And if not, obviously, everyone will have to look for lawyers, barristers, in order to claim for this. For those who are before 4 years, less than 4 years, it's going to be an easy argument. But for those who are more paid and has passed more than 4 years, also we have some arguments in order to claim back this.
Yeah, one piece of advice I might say to you will be, if you're in a position where you pay certain fines for it, that's proportionate, obviously, and then you did discuss it already with your lawyer or advisor, here. The fact of applying for money back in the tax office as a non-resident for the 3%, as always incorrect in payments, it takes long and is quite exhausting. Our recommendation is to lodge the administrative claim, okay, because at the end of the day, it's going to be a queuing issue. You're going to be queuing there to get your money back. You will get it back with interest, but the sooner you lodge it, if you've got a case, the better. Okay,
that's right.
Right. Okay, we're going to leave you with Juan for now. I'm sorry it took us a little bit of time more than expected. It's a pleasure to be with you. It's a pleasure. Pedro, thank you for your time.
We will be obviously to inform and update whenever we have a government action that we hope it was going to be before the 31st of March. Something will be said. And obviously we will be updating a new webinar or an article or video that we will make in order to inform clients. Next
webinar, what we're going to talk about is customs. I know it's going to affect a lot of non-Europeans, especially now, obviously, our clients, British, Americans, non-Europeans in general. Obviously, we're going to have a guest, which is Manuel, especially from private customs agency. He's going to talk about that, which you guys have a lot of questions about paying this tax through Correos, etc., etc. And if you think of any interesting questions, send us the questions for that. It will be in 15 days at the same time, 4 o'clock. And it's a pleasure to give you a little bit of light to you and the law in Spain. Okay, Juan Fran, over to you. Thank you for your time and see you very soon.
Thank you.
Trust is vital when you're in another country. If you want to buy a home, set up business relationships, or apply for a residence permit, you need to be able to count on the best independent legal aid. Pellicer and Heredia is an international firm of lawyers with over 20 years experience and one single aim: for you to live at ease in Spain. In order to give you a clear, streamlined, and fast response, we work with a cross-disciplinary team of professionals specializing in the main legal fields: civil law, foreigners' affairs, business law, tax and financial law, and international law. And to ensure that you're kept informed and up to date with everything, we have 6 offices on the Eastern Coast. Whether you're from here or abroad, we will always stand by you and speak your language. Our relationship is based on openness, professionalism, and a commitment to finding legal solutions in your best interests and for your peace of mind. Pellicer and Heredia, international lawyers.